The Swedish elections, nothing resolved there other than the new Social Democrats, which are the populist party in Sweden, the anti-immigration party, gaining seats. Now they're going to have some kind of a coalition government. And just heard from Bob Woodward in his book that is actually being officially released tomorrow, although the excerpts got leaked out from the Washington Post. And what about this op-ed that ran in the New York Times? And who was the scurrilous rat turtle turd in the White House that did this? And does he even exist? Let's break all this down with Sam Nunberg. Sam is a longtime advisor to then candidate Trump and Mr. Trump. He was also now a senior advisor to Steve Bannon's Citizens for the American Republic Political Action Committee. Sam, great to have you, man.
Thanks to be on again. Great to be on.
I think the Jets are better than you think they are. I really do. I know everybody is making fun of them. I think they're better. I think they're going to win 8 games. I really do. Buffalo looked horrible yesterday. There's 2 wins right there, right? So they got at least 2 wins. But I think they're going to be a little bit tougher.
But yeah, maybe they'll lose in Buffalo.
Buffalo was pathetic yesterday. All right, let's get off football. We'll wait for that.
I'll tell you, though, that was a great call. I was thinking about you yesterday. I had on NFL Red Zone, and the Redskins look like a great team. They look like they're for real. They've got a running back. Now his name escapes me, but that guy was remember, he ran for 2,000 yards one season.
Adrian Peterson.
Smith, all that guy knows how to do is win.
Yep.
I think they've got a good team this year, and they're in a weak division. They could be getting pretty far. I think, but we'll find out if they are the Redskins.
I think they're going to win 10 games, and as I've said, Alex Smith is not an exciting quarterback. He never wins the big game. That's been the rap on him. But if you look at his his NFL season record, the guy wins football games. He's not flashy. He's not throwing 8 touchdown passes, but he makes very little mistakes. He manages the game well, and I think he fits in with this club, and I think the Skins are going to win 10 games. Sam, let's get to this op-ed. Let's get to this op-ed and this scurrilous rat, coward, yellow-belly turtle turd that did this. What is the deal here?
Well, what's even worse about the person that did it is, one, I think the person is either it's around 45 people that it could be, because a senior administration official, there's this misnomer going out, this misconception that it could be up to 4,000 people. It's essentially 45 people under the New York Times standard, which means that it would either be a cabinet official, somebody directly under the cabinet, or somebody within the West Wing, or EOB, Eisenhower Office Building. I suspect it could be somebody who many other people within the administration know who it is. And the real problem is that it's not about this specific person. Person is gutless. We can go into the content of what they wrote, but it's about the fact that they felt that they can even write something like this and get away with it. It's ironic if I would tell you that something like this would come out, you tell me I'm talking to the wrong show. I should be talking to Alex Jones. They even say we're not the deep state. We're the stable state, I believe they called it. Mm-hmm. And then the worst part about it, what I thought, one of the worst parts, the whole thing is disgusting, John, was when they said, but we as a country need to understand how we got here. You know how we got here? We got here for 6 million votes for Donald Trump, 306 electoral votes. States won by Donald Trump that Republicans have not won since 1984, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, we haven't won since 92. And obviously Michigan since 92 as well. Pennsylvania, I believe. I don't think Bush won it in 92. But the idea that you can write in this that you're doing me a favor as a regular tax-paying American because you, who work in the Article 2 executive branch, do not carry out the orders of the chief executive who is democratically elected, had a peaceful transition of power, and you can think that this is something that's prideful. It just shows the callous, and it also shows the reason why Donald Trump won. Look, I don't pretend. I'm not a White House guy. I'm never going to be. I'm not the kind of guy, John, so you can understand I care that I'll never work in the White House. I'm the guy that wanted to work on the campaign. But there are many loyalists around this president. There are many people that would have his best interest out. best interest for him, and which is the best interest for the country. There are more Peter Navarros out there. There are more Larry Kudlows. There are more John Boltons, just to name a few, that are within close proximity. Your friend Corey Lewandowski, your friend David Bossie. When you read something like this, I don't understand why guys like them are not in this White House. And it's time for the president, frankly, to clean house. This starts at the top. And what do I mean it starts at the top? Not at the top with the president. It starts at the top with somebody like a John Kelly. Mr. Four-star general was supposed to have control of this whole thing, was supposed to bring order, honor, yada, yada, yada. You know, I knew that was going to be a complete fail, by the way. But why is somebody like this still has a job? And from what I'm hearing, there are other people that are working hard at trying to oust him. That's fine. I don't necessarily agree with their politics. I don't want to get into it with your show. But I think the president's going to make a big move here. And I think he should fire John Kelly.
Sam, what is the genesis of this? Like, this has never happened in any other administration. What is the?
No,
I mean, when Obama got in, he surrounded himself with very, very competent loyalists. You might disagree with them, but you look what Obama did when he came in. I mean, he had Valerie Jarrett, he had Rahm Emanuel, he had David Axelrod. He had people that were very loyal to him and his policies, and they kept a tight grip. You would have never seen this in the Obama administration. You would never have seen it in the George W. administration, although I was not a fan of his. What is the genesis of this, Sam, you think?
Well, you got to remember, Donald Trump ran as basically an independent. One of the reasons he was able to win the nomination was that you had 16 other people looking in the mirror thinking that they could have won the nomination. Mm-hmm. In fact, in hindsight, I'm not so sure. Had it been a normal field of 7 or 8, if the primary would have gone the same way, because he ran on policies that are outside the grain of the two-party duopoly, namely on tariffs. Mm-hmm. He wasn't just giving, he wasn't just giving words to it when he ran. He's been holding those positions, John, since the 80s. He wasn't just giving word service to reorienting the economic international supply chain. He wasn't giving word service to reorienting the defense establishment. Mm-hmm. And I think that when he came in, these people couldn't believe. The main failing of what happened was the following. They, I don't believe, took the transition seriously. They gave it to Christie just as a placeholder. The president himself, I'm not criticizing him. He just wouldn't be interested in the transition until he won the election. All the work Christie got was then, anybody associated with Christie was then thrown to the curb with Christie. And the main people that did the hiring were essentially Jared Kushner. And let me tell you something. I know this from my point of view because I was called quite frequently by Michael Cohen during 2017. I was asked about information on Steve Bannon, and I could just tell that Michael was scouting to try to get Steve fired, to do it on behalf of Jared, to think that one day he would get in the White House. And one day I just said to Michael, look, Michael, I'm not stupid. I just want to explain something to you, and you're not going to like what you have to hear. The reason you didn't get a job was because of Jared. It had nothing to do with Steve Bannon. It had nothing to do with Reince Priebus. And so, look, is it good for me to say this right now? Will I get in trouble maybe for saying this? But I think the main problem has been his son-in-law. His son-in-law is not a political person. That is fine. You don't necessarily need political people to run transitions or things like that. But he has no political expertise. He has no political acumen. And he is the reason why they brought in a Gary Cohn. Gary Cohn, I've read the Woodward book. I've had an advanced copy. It's like an ode to Gary Cohn, Rob Porter, and McMaster, okay? None of those people should have been in the White House, ever. None of them. Gary Cohn, I'll give you a good example. Gary Cohn was Lloyd Blankfein's excrement. He was going to be fired from Goldman. But Jared brings him up to meet with his father-in-law, and he gets this big, humongous portfolio. He pushes out Larry Kudlow, who deserved the position. And he comes in there pretending as if, I mean, this is the guy who voted for Hillary Clinton. He comes in there trying to run all economic policies. And I remember when Gary got fired from his position, he claims he resigned. He got fired. Mm-hmm. He was still trying to become CIA chief because it was at the same time that Tillerson, who should never have been given that position either, was being fired, and Pompeo was going to take his place. So let's not pretend like Gary was some martyr here. And to go into this, John, look, we've just had gangbuster numbers in the economy. I don't talk to you as an economist, but all I know is I've heard for years tariffs would kill us. Tariffs would destroy the economy. Well, the president had implemented tariffs way before the last quarter. We're getting that quarter's reporting. We've had record manufacturing growth. We've had, forget record job growth, we've had record wage increase. We haven't had wage increase like this since Bush's days, since W's days of 2006. So the same way that I was told, that Corey was told, any of us were told that Donald Trump could never win the nomination, that Donald Trump would be a terrible candidate, and we laughed and we said he's probably the only one who could win, frankly. At least compared to Jeb Bush, he's going to be the only one who could win the presidency. I've been told, and I don't pretend to be a policy expert on this, that these policies that he was promoting, that he believed in, were going to destroy our economy. How's our economy doing? Our economy is so great now that Barack Obama has to go talk on Friday to try to claim credit for it. That's how good the economy is, and that's because of the resilience of this president. But it goes back to, we can both agree, and I agree with you, it is gutless that this person wrote this. I personally don't have a problem with the New York Times putting it up. I'm not here to attack them. They've got to do what they've got to do to sell papers. That's fine. But I think the president's got to make a bold move here. And what I really think is, at the end of the day, it's time to get your people in. And your people are people that know you. Your people are people that want to serve in the White House. I'm not here auditioning for a White House job, nor would I get a White House job, John. I don't pretend to. But I'm telling you something you can't believe. I'm saying he should bring in a Corey Lewandowski. Bring in a Dave Bossie. Get John Kelly out. This starts at the top. Kelly says everybody in the White House works for him. Fine. Somebody who works for you wrote this. You're fired.
Okay, when Sam Nunberg says bring in Corey Lewandowski, now we've got real news. Sam, okay, you want to bring Corey Lewandowski in. You guys have been at odds for some time.
I want to bring in people who... Corey. Yeah, Corey. Dave Bossie, if they want the job. Right. People that have been asking for jobs from the beginning, have been pushed out, and are people like Peter Navarro's, Larry Kudlow's, John Bolton's, people that have shown that, forget if they're loyal, well, they are loyal, but that they understand this president. They get his zeitgeist. They understand what needs to be executed. And for people to come in, like a John Kelly, to say this is crazy town on the president, to put off a wall for the president, which he effectively did for 2 months. By the way, the president was doing terrible at that point when Kelly had that wall from September, October-ish.
Right.
Ultimately culminated with him going to Davos. Ultimately culminated with him basically the one good thing Kelly ever did, frankly, I will give him credit for, was stopping Lindsey Graham from getting that stupid deal with Trump of DACA for 1 year of wall funding.
Right.
But to do something like that, I mean, it's just time. Kelly has got to go. From what I understand, when Kelly said that the president asked him to serve until 2020, president doesn't really. I don't know if the president actually asked that, but the president wasn't very happy that was announced. And it's something that starts at the top. If you're Mr. Four-Star General, I'm not, once again, the same way when I criticize John McCain, I'm talking about your politics, I'm talking about this. You're obviously not up for this job. So then the next question always comes, well, who would want these jobs? You have perfectly qualified people that the president is comfortable with, such as Corey Lewandowski, such as David Bossie, such as others. I'm sure he wants to bring John McEntee back in, people like that. I'm saying it's irrelevant to me who it is, but this cannot go on. This is a coup. This is coup. This is what goes on. This is historical. When you look at that New York Times op-ed, John, we've heard similar things written. I hate to I hate to bore your audience, but we've heard similar things written, let's say, about Caesar before Caesar was assassinated, things like that. I'm not saying the president's going to be assassinated, but you understand, before people were removed from office. He is surrounded by strangers. He is surrounded by people that don't respect him, but they love working in the White House. They love the position he's granted them. You don't like it, leave. Get out. And the top guy I'm saying that's Kelly. We heard Kelly say that to Omarosa. Everyone in the White House works for me. You obviously don't do a good job controlling this place, okay? And one, you don't know anything about legislation. But number two, you don't know anything about media, okay? And if all it is procedure, this, and fighting with the president constantly, and going over, trying to control your terrain, that's not the way you work or make this president successful. So, look, it's not about Corey Lewandowski or Dave Bossie. What I really think is that it's just time for John Kelly to quit. Just quit. I mean, get out. You don't like it. You have people under you that clearly don't like working for him. Leave.
So, Sam,
and by the way, John Kelly should be the one trying to find out who wrote this thing.
Right. Well, because he is the chief of staff.
It's his responsibility because the ultimate culprit, I believe, is going to be from this White House. If I had to suspect, I mean, you could think it's somebody else, maybe a cabinet official, maybe an ambassador. But he really should be putting all those people that work for him, DeStefano, Zach Fuentes, if that's his name, put them on lie detector tests. Let's see who wrote them. Let's at least find out that nobody within the West Wing of this president wrote something like that. And Andrew Brumberg, who worked for Sessions, went into the transition, never thinking Trump was going to win, just so he can try to control the next transition. I want to know if one of these guys wrote it, because none of them really have anything to – I don't know what they have produced for this president besides the tax bill, which the only reason they got that at the end of the day was because the president had to push the hell out of Ryan and McConnell to get their act together. I don't really give anybody in that West Wing credit for it. So that's where it is. And once again, it goes to – I always hear John, well, nobody. Who would replace John Kelly? There are plenty of people out there that would replace him, and there are plenty of people that if they were in this administration, if they were in the Oval Office, if they're in the West Wing, we wouldn't be seeing anonymous op-ed. That I guarantee you, if Corey Lewandowski or David Bossie were in the West Wing, right?
I agree with that.
I have my problems with Corey, fine, but I know Corey. I know what Corey's very good at. We would not be seeing anonymous op-eds. That I promise you.
So, look, I think you're making a very compelling argument here, which is that John Kelly is the chief of staff, and he said to Omarosa, everybody reports into me, so somebody that is reporting into him, or him, right, wrote this op-ed, and so let's just put everybody on a lie detector test and get it over with, and let's see who passes it, right? I mean, either you're in charge or not, and so, okay, you read the Bob Woodward book, you said.
Right.
What did you think of it?
First of all, I think that, once again, President should have sat down with him, and it's not the president's fault. Nobody wanted to go to the president because they were all leaking to Woodward, and they were scared of going to him and saying, as opposed to me, I would, but this is one of the reasons I get fired all the time. I would have said, Mr. President, I just met with Bob Woodward. I really think you need to sit with him because of the questions he asked me. When you heard Kellyanne, it was pretty pathetic in that recorded conversation starting to blame Hope Hicks, who's not even in the White House. Long story short, this book's main sources are three contemptible people: Gary Cohn, Rob Porter, and John Dowd. The things in this book, John, I will send the book to you after this interview so you can take a look at it before tomorrow. The things in this book, when you read the John Dowd things, I'm an attorney. I mean, the fact that he gives attorney-client privilege, he goes to such great length and in-depth on private conversations with the president and private conversations on behalf of the president with Mueller. Mueller in the room, by the way, on a side note, he looks like the biggest idiot because as you have argued, as I've argued from the beginning, and I know you've argued this, as anybody with any sense, as David Bossie argued, as Corey Lewandowski argued, as Steve Bannon argued, we all said you do not give those documents over. You do not give all these interviews over to Mueller. The end of it, John Dowd says, I got played. I'm an idiot. Well, that's great. That really helped Donald Trump after you were charging him $100,000 a month. But I just think that, look, I don't blame Bob Woodward for this. Once again, Bob Woodward did not get an interview. I read every Bob Woodward book. I looked through all of them again on my iPad. There's always that part where he loves to write as I sat in the Oval Office with the president. You know, it's a big Woodward thing. Book would have been different. But Bob Woodward, on the other hand, if you're just going to write an ode to Rob Porter and Gary Cohn, you better try to get to this president better than you did. Not just say, well, I asked Kellyanne and I asked Senator Graham. I mean, get to the president, write him a long letter and explain to him what you are hearing. And I think the book would have at least had the president's ideas and insights in it on the record. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, once again, it's just Rob Porter, Gary Cohn, Mattis, Rines, who looks good in the book, I believe. Steve looks good in the book, I believe. I would think, but it's basically people that were very disgruntled and anti the president, who had left and frustrated, and he just gives them basic, he just writes whatever they tell him, and they bring him supporting documents. Steve Bannon has told me that one of the reasons he ended up sitting with Woodward so many times was because he could not believe what Woodward was being told by others. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that the book could have come out even worse had people not like Bannon or Rines sat there with him and explained and gave insight. But it is absolutely contemptible when you read the John Dowd, the Rob Porter, and the Gary Cohn excerpts. It's things that, I don't pretend to be somebody. I'm a leaker, fine, but I wouldn't do things like that. There is a distinction and a difference, and this is the Oval Office. This isn't a campaign. And I think that this book is something that if Gary Cohn thinks that Gary Cohn's not back at Goldman, but it's basically an ode to It's an ode to the old failed policies of Democrats and Republicans and how they were trying to stop the president from getting stuff done. Now, John, where do we sit? Gary's not here. The president's been putting out tariffs like crazy. Once again, I went over those economic numbers. So Gary Cohn and his Goldman Sachs point of view has been proven wrong. And that's what I think. I'll send you the book when we're offline.
Final question. How did Gary Cohn end up in there?
Jared Kushner.
Unbelievable.
That's the answer. Jared Kushner.
It's just unbelievable.
Jared Kushner. And I think that not only did he put Gary in, but he made sure Gary was able to. What Gary did, not only that, was he got the position from Trump. I don't think anybody had the cojones to tell Trump, look, Gary's getting fired from Goldman. You realize he has nowhere else to go, and you realize he voted for Hillary Clinton, right? Mm-hmm. You realize this. Nobody told him that in advance, at least. Mm-hmm. I've been told that during the transition, they had agreed that they were only going to give 3 names for a position to the president. Mm-hmm. And even the president's children were frustrated with their son-in-law. Well, not their daughter, but the brothers were frustrated with their brother-in-law because he would be very selective of who those 3 names would be. Mm-hmm. And he had known Gary. He had interned for Gary. He loves Goldman Sachs. Kushner's got their own problem, real estate, their financial problems. Everybody knows about it. They thought it would be good to get a Gary in there. And remember, Jared just thought that Trump would be a moderate once he came in. He didn't care what Trump campaigned on. He didn't understand the president. He doesn't understand the base. So it is what it is. The president's made this decision. I understand it's his daughter's son, and at least we know Jared was able to close one good deal as opposed to all those real estate deals, and he married very well.
Well, sometimes, if you marry up, you're in really good shape in this world, Sam. No question about that.
Right.
Hey, we're out of time. Sam Nunberg, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week. Always appreciate your insight. Look, send me that book when you get a chance. You know where I am, Sam.
I'm doing it right now.
Really appreciate it.